Hi, welcome to another edition of KWSM Social Media Help Desk. I'm not Katie, I'm Jeff, joined by Alexandra and Melissa. Welcome. So lots to talk about today, as we always do. First, Twitter, little Twitter storm today?
A little bit.
So Roseanne Barr made a joke that wasn't very, wasn't very appropriate. Yeah, that's a good word, yeah. And things happened, and they canceled her show. ABC quickly canceled her show, and it goes to show that you have to be careful on social media because it can all go in the blink of an eye.
Absolutely.
You're wearing Twitter blue today, by the way.
I know. I planned for this. I just knew.
Is that a lesson for brands? I mean, how do you, whether that's, we live in a society now where even businesses have somewhat of these outspoken CEOs, right? T-Mobile CEO is always like, hey, be my friend on Twitter, like me. Elon Musk is out on social media. There are people out there. How, at what level do you go to protect yourself? Guidelines. What do you do to protect yourself as a business?
You definitely have to list out your rules of engagement. I think that should be number one whenever you're starting up your business and going onto social media, because it is a big world and everybody's going to see everything that you're posting out there. So rules of engagement, that goes down to like what you should include in your post, what not to include, especially Exhibit A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not limited to Twitter. It can be any channel, right? I mean, it can be something on your website.
Yeah. Definitely be careful with things that you put out there. I mean, I can give a great example of just yesterday was Memorial Day, and I saw a lot of posts going up in regards to Memorial Day, and something in particular came up, and they wished a happy Memorial Day, which was them they were mixing it up with Veterans Day is what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell by what the content of the post was. It was also mixing it, and I was like, man, you gotta check that with somebody first. Just even those little things you gotta be careful with.
And was that a brand that you saw, or was that a person?
It was a group.
Okay,
it wasn't necessarily a brand, but it was a large enough group, kind of one of those things, kind of a offshoot of a BuzzFeed style, share compilation videos and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, the video is cute, but you missed the mark, guys. That was the wrong thing to say.
Well, and we see that from time to time. We even interact with our clients and talk to them through these holidays, right? And yesterday is really more of a solemn remembrance of people who lost their lives fighting for the country, and yet you do see your share of Memorial Day sales, and with your barbecue this weekend, get this, and that's something that you can alienate a big portion of your audience with, somewhat. I mean, it goes along the lines of the insensitivity of that, of what we talked about with the Roseanne issue, yeah. And so again, that's guidelines, right? It's looking ahead and instructing your whoever's representing your brand on social media to really understand what events are, especially when you have global brands, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've seen people write, Happy 4th of July to other countries, which makes no sense, right?
Yeah, even down to like Mother's Day, because Mother's Day is celebrated on different days in other parts of the world. Yeah. So it's like you have to really look into everything that you're posting about. Yeah,
I mean, social media is a great tool to engage people, but you can also fan the flames of a fire really quickly if you aren't set up. One other thing, kind of on that vein, there's been so much since the Cambridge Analytica data privacy issue and Zuckerberg talking to in front of Congress. I saw a story today that Papua New Guinea is going to shut down Facebook in its country for 30 days to determine whether or not Facebook is beneficial or if it's a harm to society. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Oh, I don't blame them. I mean, my news feed is filled with all sorts of interesting stuff now, and it's crazy, so I don't blame them at all.
I think it's interesting. I was reading up on that, and only 10% of the country has internet.
Yeah.
So it's a much smaller group of people.
It's 1 million people, right?
Yeah,
it's 1 million total people.
That's it. And so it's interesting that they're taking the time to do that. Meanwhile, I mean, maybe that says something about how we operate, is it's all ad revenue, and we know that it's worth the money to have Facebook up and running. It's just another source of entertainment for us. So I'm curious to see what their results will be. That's actually what I want to know.
Well, yeah, and then, I think Facebook tries to be, some of the things that they said they were trying to screen for was, harmful content, adult content, which Facebook's usually pretty good about shutting down pretty quickly. But I mean, it was, one of the articles I read, there's 2+ billion users. So it's not like this would impact Facebook. But what if other smaller governments decided to go down this road? And we've already seen with some GDPR stuff, there are some lawsuits that they immediately went after Facebook and Google, I think.
Facebook and Google.
And now they're talking about Apple, right? And so there are certain fees set up for GDPR, and I believe we talked about that last week. So some interesting stories out there. These are happening today. Some of the things that, other things we wanted to talk about, one was regarding websites, because I know we do a lot of website work for clients, and we seem to get a lot of questions about websites. A lot of people know, business owners and operators know they need websites, but they really don't know how to make the customer experience flawless, or at best it could be. Can you walk us through a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the customer experience is so important, specifically because that is going to be what keeps them on your site. If you have a difficult site to navigate, if you have a site that doesn't look quite right, then it's going to feel less trustworthy. So we're going to go over 3 quick things, and one of them is design. This is going to be in regards to making sure that your brand is consistent across all boards. If you're really good on social but your website isn't as important, it still should look like your brand. And also, if you're due for an update on your brand and design, you should do it. People can tell right away. You know when you go to a site and you're like, oh, this is an old site. When was the last time that they took care of this? And you feel a little bit weird sometimes about it. You're like, I don't know how much I trust this brand anymore. So you want to make sure that that design element is definitely there. The second thing is going to be navigation. This is the thing that hangs most people up, especially when you're a site that has, for example, e-commerce. You can think of sites that you're like, man, I like their brand, but it's impossible to buy something on their site. It's hard to find. It's hard to, figure out the shopping cart. There's too many pages, whatever that may be. Now, that's not to say that you can't have a lot of pages or e-commerce. It's going to be important, though, to make sure that you allow search bars, or that the navigation up at the top of your page, that menu, is very clear what each of those things is. So you're either going to go to a home page, you're going to go to a women's style page, or you're going to go to, a resources page of some kind. And you want to make sure that your customer is going to be able to click on that and know what's coming next. And that's something that hangs up a lot of people. And then last but not least is going to be innovation. What you want to do is keep it fresh as often as possible. And sometimes that might be as simple as, in the design, having a slider that shows multiple images on the home page. It kind of cycles through a few things. That's very common. We're all used to seeing those now, so they work really well. Or if you are someone who has a way to, incorporate seasonal things. So winter's coming around, let's say you add a little bit of a winter design to your, just little skins to add to your site. And what that's going to do is it's going to make your clients realize that you're being thoughtful about the entire process of the business that they run, and the website is key to that, because we go to websites so much to make sure that this is the right place to be and that you are a credible source for their needs.
And we, on the content side, we create a lot of content that drives to the website, and so it has to be updated, it has to be consistent. And I think that's some of the hardest stuff with creating content, when you don't have a place to go or people can get lost on a website. What do you see from the social side, how important those elements are when you're creating social content?
It's incredibly important, just because it's like you go into the, wherever your first contact is, let's say you're on social first, and then you click into the website, and then maybe if you're downloading an app, you click to the app store. It all has to create one solid flow of things, so everything has to be very consistent. Consistency is probably the most important thing, as you said. And creating content that's just visually appealing. I like to use video a lot, just because it tells a story without having to say too much.
Sounds like you're foreshadowing something we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. I don't know. Yeah, I think video is an important driver of that. And so, even in the landing pages, there's a lot of people we see send an ad to a homepage, well, there's 30, 40 different tabs and options there. You're almost giving the customer too much information at that point. And so like I know that we want to have like specific, like as part of your navigation thing, if you're sending someone straight to where you want them to go and they're going to learn about your product or service, like that's the end all be all, and you want to just click through to either contact or buy, right?
Yep.
And so I still see a lot of websites out there that don't have that, or ads at least that don't really send people with into that sales process or lead process.
Yeah, landing pages are something that we do a lot of research on to make sure, because they're going to be different for every kind of client or what you're selling or what you're providing. And a lot of times you do see them land on a page where it's like, well, now I'm at this site, I clicked on an ad, I thought it was going to tell me about the ad I clicked on, and now I'm just like dropped into an entire site. So landing pages are so useful when it comes to designing them in such a way where it's like, here's the information, here's what you can do about it. And that's really what we want landing pages to do. We don't want them to navigate anywhere else. We want them to buy something. We want them to contact someone, and so that comes down to, making sure that the social and the website play well together.
Well, and even when you're constantly updating, even on organic stuff, when you're constantly updating the website, it gives you more to work with on the social side,
Exactly.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you deal with times where you're trying to create content that's looking ahead, and you've encountered websites where they're still kind of stuck, like you said, seasonally, right? You're looking ahead to summer now, and someone's still got the winter look or a spring look there, and it's 95 outside, right? Like you got to stay consistent, otherwise it hurts your social media, right? Okay, so you teased us a little bit. Video. Video is such a big component in everything now. Social media, certainly websites. I know that when I navigate to a page, if there's a website, I like to read what the brand's about, or watch what the brand's about. I like to hear what they do. Can you tell us a little bit about how important video is becoming in everything that on your digital marketing spectrum for a brand?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I'm a huge fan of video just because it tells a story without actually having to write and say so much. And I've been reading a lot that our attention span is getting a lot smaller. They said it's 3 seconds now. Or like our viewers it's like we have a 3-second attention span, and that's less than a goldfish. So
I'm sorry, did you just say something?
So I mean, like because of that, the video is so important to marketing because we have those 3 seconds to catch a viewer's attention, and that's not going to happen with an abundance of content or text. So if they see a video, we latch them on, and then it'll eventually lead to the rest of the site. So like, okay, let's say you're learning about, I don't know, Roseanne.
Right.
Like people of these days and age, like they probably don't know who the actual the original Roseanne was.
Oh,
But maybe educating them on like what the series is about and whatnot. So yeah, attention span is huge. Let's see.
So you've got a list. You've got 13 reasons. You wrote 13 reasons why.
I wrote 13 reasons
right?
why
you need video.
Yeah, I wrote 13 reasons why you need video specifically.
Okay.
The 13 reasons why. But it builds trust. So building trust with your viewers is always like a huge priority because that's your one chance to really introduce yourself and make a statement for yourself. Paints the picture for the customer. So like I said earlier, it just says a lot without having to say too much. It's easy to digest, and it humanizes your brand too. So giving yourself a personality, like they don't want to just watch a video and see an ad. They want to see who your brand is, what you guys represent, and why you guys should be friends. So that it shows your products in action. You can really put up some demos in your content. It's constantly emerging, and it drives organic traffic. So like when you post a video, I'm sure with Facebook we've all had those times where we're scrolling through our feed, we see an awesome video and we want to share it with our friends. So just driving a ton of organic traffic, get straight to the point, smartphone friendly. You can watch a video from anywhere, your phone, laptop. It's easy to distribute, like sharing. and the budget is under your control. So like nowadays you can go as full out as like a full production, which is amazing. Or I mean, if you're a startup business, you can use your smartphone. You know, sometimes you can create like app store videos or stuff with like just like demoing your brand and whatnot. You can utilize influencers to promote your brand as well, and use their social voice, and it has a strong conversion rate. So I'm definitely all about video.
You are. And the thing is, and you're the project manager of our video team.
Yes.
And so you can go from a full shoot to get someone on camera, you can interview, you can give speech. We do so many different things. Mm-hmm. We can do product shots. We just did a product shot last week, videos, which are great. We can do graphical videos. And like you said, even on the smaller scale stuff, content-wise, right? You're live streaming, you've got your smartphone, you're recording video, and this day and age, that's what people are consuming. So it doesn't always have to be high production. However, you're launching a brand, you're putting something that's featured on your website, you do want to go full-scale production, right?
Yeah, and I think that comes down to back to making sure your website is up to date, is that if you're going to update the entirety of your website and it looks really awesome, but you don't and you want to feature a video, but it's not a good production and it feels out of place, that's going to feel weird for your audience. They are not going to know what to do with that. So, you know, social, totally acceptable. You know, we're used to our stories on Instagram. We're used to sharing just whatever picture we took on our phone, and that's fine because it's social. It's in the moment. It's exactly what you're trying to share as a brand. But for something, you want to think of your website as kind of like the cornerstone that's going to hold things up so that when people come back to it, they know, okay, this is a viable brand, and I believe that they know what they're doing, and so you want to maybe have the production value up a little bit more. And there's definitely cost-effective ways to do that too.
Can I make a huge, quick disclaimer? This is like a pet peeve of mine. This is show and tell. If you're going to do video, with the exception of if you're on Snapchat stories, you shoot it like this.
Yep.
You shoot it like this. I was at a concert last week, and the guy filmed every single song like this, and at the end of the night, his buddy said, you should be holding it like this. And I tapped the guy on the shoulder and said, yes, thank you, it's been driving me nuts all night. But this, whoops, I turned on the light, sorry. But like, this is the way to get full width video. It's going to expand your people, so if you've got a guy on stage and he's running around singing, don't do it this way. Anyway, that was my disclaimer.
No, that's totally right. I mean, and I think people are afraid of that though because they think of like, oh, my phone, I hold my phone this way and I read all my social this way, but then you forget that there's still times where you're going to be on like an actual computer. And
yes.
it'll be wider.
TV,
and you
right?
want
Exactly.
It like that,
You want to play it on a especially if you're shooting something that's going to be shown on a monitor of any size, you want the width of it because it's going to get more. Let's kind of work through, if I'm a client and I'm considering video, I'm going to say, can you take me through the steps of what can I do from a social standpoint with a smartphone, and then we'll work all the way up to how do you budget, prepare / I guess plan for a full scale, like full day shoot, like we do an 8-hour shoot. So can you kind of walk us through how you take your smartphone and how you get content in different ways, what equipment you might need, if any, besides your smartphone?
For social, there's, you know, like you said, we use it like on the vertical side, like pretty often just for the Instagram stories, Facebook Live. I would highly recommend that, an Instagram Live as well. And for social, I'm not sure. It's pretty casual. Like I don't, on social media, they're looking for the personality of your brand, your social voice, and so it doesn't always have to be as formal. You can also utilize screen recording on your phone, which is a great way to demo certain things and maybe introduce your website. So yeah, there's multiple ways to utilize video on social, and it doesn't have to be too, I guess, fancy.
And you really don't need a whole lot of equipment, right? I mean, I know they have these fancy stabilizers and gyroscopes and things like that. You can put your phone in, which are really cool.
Yeah.
But like, you really, as long as you've got a steady hand, I mean, ideally you can buy a little like, they have those clip tripods or whatever you can attach to things. But like, as long as you've got a steady hand, you really can get some decent quality, pretty good quality video for social.
Yeah, exactly. And You can even use a selfie stick too.
That's right.
Optimal lighting is key. So I mean, natural lighting, if possible, ring lights. There's those clip-on ring lights that you can just hook on if it's a dark area that you're trying to capture footage for. So it's pretty flexible.
And so that's on the social side. And then obviously we do a lot of project shots, a lot of our product shots, excuse me. And we also feature our clients at a lot of various events.
Yeah.
Kind of take us through the things that are involved, how we kind of lay out the shot sheet, plan for things, what equipment our team does. Andrew, the man running the live stream right now, tell us, kind of take us through what's involved in that. So someone that doesn't know the difference between what a 4-hour shoot is or what an 8-hour shoot is and what that entails.
So I think first thing you have to know is that, so while social is super conversational and it's trying to start a conversation, when you're doing a bigger production, that's going to be something that's telling a story. It needs to either be scripted or very well laid out. That's like key is planning beforehand. If you walk into a shoot that hasn't been planned, you can tell immediately. You want to know exactly what you're doing. So depending on your brand, depending on what story you're trying to tell is going to dictate what kind of video we want to do. So if we're doing an 8-hour shoot, first thing you need to expect is it's going to be a long day. And it feels like a long day. It's very fun, but it can feel like a very long day. What is going to happen is we find an ideal location. Sometimes we shoot in people's offices. Sometimes we find a location to shoot at. And we make sure that everybody is dressed appropriately. We know that there's certain colors that look better on camera. We know that certain patterns look horrible on camera. We make sure that everybody knows, like, hey, we need to have a dress code here. This is how we're going to do it. And this is just prep stuff, so we hope they show up that way. Then it's going to be a matter of setting up, and that can take some time. It takes us usually an hour to set up any shoot that we do. That's part of the 8-hour day. And if we have to move locations at all, that's another hour of picking up and moving. And it's going to include, we've done shots with 2 lights, we've done shots with 6 lights, depending on how the lighting of the location is. So we're going to set up our lights, we're going to set up the camera, and we just use a DSLR to video everything. And we've done shoots where sometimes there's multiple cameras. There might be multiple angles. And it really depends on what you're doing. So for example, if you're videoing someone who's doing a speech, we might use multiple cameras to get multiple angles. If we're doing something that's just someone talking straight to the camera and just speaking about, their brand or maybe talking testimonials, that kind of thing, there'll be a single camera. That's not a problem at all. But just know in the end that I can't speak to budget necessarily because everybody's going to be different.
Sure.
It's going to be whatever works for you at the time. And my thought on this is if you're going to get started on doing professional video, really working into having these great videos, plan ahead and know that, okay, today might be a shorter shoot. Today might be a 4-hour. Maybe I don't even have 4 hours to do something like that. But later on, know that you're going to want to refresh that information again. And having more video and having more of these productions later on and just scheduling out, okay, every 6 months we do a new video. We set up a day, and that's what we're going to do. And that helps with the social because it allows them to have brand new stuff to share.
It does. And I think the one thing that people need to realize if they've never been a part of a video shoot, even a 5-minute script piece or whatever takes a very long time to do with retakes, multiple angles, setting everything up. 5 minutes is not 5 minutes, and you have to have the patience to get it right because it needs to be right. And to your point, like you can take that video and you can turn that video into a blog. You can break it into mini pieces for social content. And so there's a lot of uses out of video. You can upload it onto LinkedIn, which performs better on LinkedIn. You can put it on Facebook, which performs better. You can certainly upload it on YouTube. No reason why you can't use it on Twitter. It's already on your website. And there are other places you can use it too. Instagram, up to 60 seconds, but it has to be right to be on Instagram.
Right.
But there are a lot of different things you can do with video, and it's really the sky's the limit, and it really comes down to that planning.
Totally. It definitely does. And keep in mind if you've got, a scheduled shoot and you go through it, you can get a lot of different content out of that one shoot. We do this a lot where, you break it down into pieces, or the footage that you got is like, nope, this was multiple videos. These have multiple things to talk about. And it's a great way. And speaking of landing pages earlier, great way to have something engaging on, for an ad is when someone clicks and goes, oh, you're going to show me a video about this. Cool.
Well, awesome. Okay, our last topic we'll leave you with. We run a blog, a weekly blog. It's called In the News, and it focuses on some of the top stories that are making news in social media that people are talking about. It could be directly from the channels themselves, or maybe people finding something within a channel that is somewhat viral. And so Instagram announced that it was going to add, and maybe you have it already, a mute feature on both the feed and stories. And this is very similar to like on Facebook, but unfollow, and then going to Twitter and still being connected, friends or whatever, but muting them there. What are your thoughts? I'll start with you on the social side.
I love it.
You love it?
Just because, I mean, I know with social, it's like over the time, like over the course of the time that Instagram and Facebook has been around, you accumulate a lot of people that you're friends with and that you follow, and you know, nowadays when somebody unfollows you, it's like their heart is broken and it becomes a big deal, especially when you're younger. It's like, you know, it becomes like this massive like ordeal, and it's just like you don't want to cause any bad feelings. It's just maybe somebody posts too much on social and you don't want your feed to be full of their posts, you know. So for me personally, I love it. Like if I unfollowed you, it doesn't mean I don't want to be friends with you.
Right.
It just, you know, sometimes you might post on social a lot, you know. And I just don't. I think it solves the issue of people like worrying if somebody is gonna be offended if they get an unfollow. So I like it. Yeah. I'm all for it.
I also like it. I mean, Twitter's been doing that for a while
Sure.
now, you know, so you can just mute someone. And I think what I think is best about it is it can be like, okay, I like you, I'm liking your page, or I'm connecting with you on Instagram because I support you as a person, whatever you're doing. I just don't need to see it every day or whatever, you know. And it's just, I mean, you're right. I have, I don't know, like 1,000 people I follow on Instagram or something stupid. I'm like, how do I even know what's going on ever? You know, because you only see the ones that you see so often or whoever posts the most.
Especially on stories where people get so, you know, they're a lot less worried about like how their aesthetic looks on their feed, and so on Instagram stories sometimes they have the little squares, and you know that they're posting like 10 every minute, and just like, and they're talking about talking through their entire day, and it's great. I'd love to know what your day is, but let's hop on a call. Let's grab some coffee or something. You know,
it's like this person's having a conversation with the entirety of their like. It's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Does anybody else get really anxious about like the stories popping up and like I feel like I have to watch them all, but I don't want to watch them all?
I'm too old for stories. I don't use them.
It's like a notification. I'm just like, oh god, there's more. I'm so behind.
Yeah.
So I guess the $1 million question is, how do brands protect themselves from the mute problem? Because if I'm a brand, I get it, right? If I'm the annoying guy at the concert who's tweeting out little 10-second clips of 15 songs, you're going to shut me down. You don't want to see it anymore, right? You don't want your feed to blow up. But how do businesses work? I don't know if it's work around this, but I mean, how do they take the measures to make sure that they keep the audience interested? I mean, is it fewer posts? Is it absolute authenticity? Is it, you know, not being so promotional? Because we see that with brands all the time, right? They over promote, especially on Twitter, right? You see the same posts over and over again, and even with Twitter kind of cracking down on that, there are ways to get around it. And so, like, because ultimately what's going to happen is there are third-party apps out there that tell you on Twitter who's muted you. And so you can figure out pretty quickly, and your feelings can still get hurt. And so what do the brands do, you know, to make sure that, you know, because we're all scraping and clawing and scratching for the audience, right? Now it's like figuring out, well, is that audience really what it says it is, or is it a lot less than that? How do I know?
I mean, the example I can give is you just don't want to fatigue your audience. You don't want to blast them with so much stuff that it's just like, oh my gosh, I've seen this already. Okay, I get it. So for me, at least if branding works on me, I'm just going to say this out loud. Just branding and marketing works on me. I'm like a great test subject for this. So if there is someone who is a brand that is supplying good content, thoughtful content, not just what they're selling or just what they provide, and then they're consistent with it, so I always know there's going to be something new, but not bombarding me with it is like a good rule of thumb for me as a like consumer.
Okay. Final thoughts from you on this?
I think it's getting or creating some content that engages the audience too. So if you have a product that you're selling, maybe having some giveaways every now and then, and giving your followers a reason to continue to follow you, giving them some value, you know. So whether it be giveaways or even like those interactive polls that you see on Instagram stories, and then seeing the results of that poll like reflected on your actual product, so they feel like they have a voice in your brand as well. So.
Awesome. Well, I think the message from both sides is, you know, you have to provide the value, and so and that's what we look to do in everything, that is, whether that's building a website or doing video, or just in your content in general, is always offering value and making it a dialogue and not just push messaging. Well, that wraps it up for us today. That was the quickest half hour in social media. I believe our fearless leader will be back next week. Should you have any questions, we encourage you to go over to our Facebook page and drop us a comment, and we always like to answer questions from people. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
See ya.